Ladies and gentlemen, Violent Games here. Got another build for you for Dishonored 2. This one's going to be called the Shadow Assault build. The Shadow Assault build encourages players to utilize stealth and ambush tactics, but doesn't discourage open combat either. So you're going to be able to play this build however the hell you want. I think that's the most fun you're going to get out of it, is playing a bit of a mixed play style. I like to utilize stealth and ambush tactics as long as I can, but if I'm compromised, I am not discouraged at all in any way because this build is very effective at dealing with enemies quickly. You're not going to be using your sword as your primary weapons, rather you're going to be using your other skills as your primary weapons. Like you're going to be using your crossbow and shadow walk essentially as your primary weapons. So those are just little nuances of difference if you thought this was more of an open combat build. Now there are a few little niche differences, and I'll get into that in the ability segment here shortly. So let's talk about necessary abilities. First up, we're going to have Shadow Walk. You're going to be spending 10 runes into this ability. You're going to grab all ranks except for Rat Shadows. I don't find Rat Shadows to be necessary. I've never once used it, like literally ever, simply because there's no need to. You can get to any room in the game usually. There might be some rooms that are more convenient to get in. I might just not know about them, literally just because I don't feel the need to ever use this ability. It's kind of sad, really. But the way you're going to be using Shadow Walk in this build is it's your primary means of taking down enemies with lethal strikes. You're going to kill up to 3 enemies once you max out this perk rank, and each enemy you attack is going to be instantly killed and with no way to fight back. However, early on in the game, if you're playing this on New Game, you're not going to be able to simply just chain kill a bunch of enemies if you are compromised. You are still vulnerable during this state. However, I'm going to be moving on to the next skill that is going to synergize with this one and allow you to do just that. Next up, we're going to grab all ranks of Shadow Kill. You're going to spend 7 runes into this. Now, the first rank is basically going to allow you to stealth kill and never be compromised by bodies. This is extremely useful, especially when you're using your crossbow at a distance. Your crossbow is going to be your primary weapon if I haven't mentioned it already, and what's going to be beautiful about having Shadow Kill with the crossbow is that you can shoot from a ranged distance, get a headshot, and it doesn't matter where the enemies are, as long as they're looking away from each other, that body will never compromise you or never alert the enemies. So it's very nice to have in that sense. The second rank of Shadow Walk isn't really going to help us all out that much, but we only get it so that we can get to the third rank, which is the Bloodfly application of Shadow Kill. Shadow Kill with the third rank is going to basically, whenever you enter open combat, when you kill an enemy, they turn into bloodflies, and they will attack the nearest enemy to them. So say you're compromised by a group of enemies. You're in Shadow Walk. You kill one person, they turn into bloodflies. You can then, from there, say there's maybe 2 or 3 more guys. One guy gets distracted by bloodflies. You can move over to the nearest enemy that isn't distracted, kill him. He'll turn into bloodflies as well. And from then on, you can just keep either killing targets who are stunned by bloodflies, or you could move on to other targets, stacking the bloodfly effect. Shadow Walk and Shadow Kill rank 3 really, really synergize, guys. I cannot tell you that, like, this is like a bread and butter type of thing. Similar to the Corvo's Rat Plague build, this Shadow Kill rank 3 really synergizes with this build very, very well. Even more so because you can use it as a stealthy application as well with the earlier ranks. And you will see me do this from time to time. Next up, we're going to be getting Bonecharm Crafting. You're going to spend 4 runes into this, and you're going to get the base rank and trait Synergy. I kind of don't encourage new game players to spend any more than that because the rune investment, especially early on, is too high. I want you to get the most out of your other utilities first. But I also should mention that you should save scum your way to getting the best Bonecharms possible. You can craft up to 4 traits on a Bonecharm. That's usually what I do, is I just put the same trait on a Bonecharm 4 times. And from there, if you get an effect that is either negative but doesn't affect you, or no negative effect at all, then you save again, rinse and repeat. Just save scum your way to victory. Now, I'm going to be moving into a bit of a Bonecharm segment here, because last time I didn't do this, got my ass chewed, and for good reasons. Thank you for chewing my ass, my loyal fans. I deserved it, though. I should have covered Bonecharms a bit better in my last build. That's my bad. So when I'm talking about Bonecharms, I'm just going to talk about the Bonecharms that I like to use. There might be some more optimal Bonecharms for you specifically. By all means, pick whatever Bonecharms you want. These are just my suggestions. So starting off, we're going to pick up Shadow Embrace, which basically just gives you a longer Shadow Walk. This is a Bonecharm you're going to find if you invested into the Shadow Walk stat line. Keep your eyes open for it. It's a very, very effective Bonecharm. And actually, substantially, I would say once you stack it 4 times, it actually substantially increases the length or the duration of Shadow Walk, is what I'm trying to say. Next up, I like to use a black Bonecharm called Invisible Thread. You're basically invisible while using Far Reach. Usually, if someone's looking at you when you zip past them with Far Reach, they would see you. This is no longer the case once you use Invisible Thread. It's very, very effective. I would almost say this black Bonecharm is 100% necessary for this playthrough. And it doesn't seem to be hard to get. I usually get this one very often when I play as Emily, so I mean, yeah, cool. Get Invisible Thread, slap that on there. It just helps you with stealth, really. Next up, I like to use a Bonecharm called Spirited. Your elixirs will restore more mana. This is basically going to make mana consumption, it's going to keep it down a bit, because every time you do use a mana potion, it's just going to restore your entire mana bar. You're not really going to have to worry about using too many mana potions to restore your mana. It's like a very, very cost-effective Bonecharm, and I love having it. Next up, I like to grab Ground Glider. Now, a lot of people might argue against Ground Glider. Again, this is a preference Bonecharm for sure, but using Ground Gliding in general allows you to chain into an instant kill, which is very, very effective no matter what mob of enemy you are fighting. But if you are also utilizing stealth, say you're playing this on New Game Plus, you can get the Silent Sprint abilities from the Black Market in the outfit section, and you can sprint relatively close to an enemy, but before you get too close for them to hear you, you can go into a slide and then an execute. The slide itself makes no noise, even though it sounds like it makes a fuck ton of noise. It actually makes no noise and does not compromise you during stealth, and with Ground Glider 4, you move really quickly during it. So it's kind of a fun way to get into instant kills. I like Ground Glider personally for multiple reasons. That's why I pick it. Fifth Bonecharm I like to use is Firestarter. With this build, I really, really do enjoy the incendiary bolts, more so than in any build possible, or any build that I've had thus far, simply due to the fact that the incendiary bolt kind of acts as a silent grenade. It does not give away your position. You can stay concealed when you use it, and the beautiful part is yes, it does make noise, but it'll cause enemies to flock to that area, leaving them vulnerable from attack from the same concealed position that you are currently in. So it's really nice for that reason. Doesn't compromise your position in any way, alerts an enemy to that direct vicinity if at all possible. Similar to grenades, I guess you could say, but it kites less enemies is what the net result is. So you're not going to have a bunch of different enemies looking around your area at one given time. Usually it's like 1 or 2. So I love having the incendiary bolts for this build, and I think Firestarter is just kind of a cool little pocket Bonecharm to have. Next up, I like to grab Spirit Water. Using taps restores mana. Now, you can use beer taps, bathtub taps, literally any fountain-esque tap you can find in the game, you can siphon mana from. And this is a very, I think, underappreciated Bonecharm, because it basically allows you to save mana whenever you are near a building-type structure in the game, because it's very easy to find water taps. It's extremely easy. They're very prevalent throughout the game, and I've used it multiple times in between clips of this footage as well. Next up is probably one of my favorite Bonecharms in the game. It's a corrupt Bonecharm called Zephyr. Zephyr increases overall movement speed. Now, that's not what it says in the description, but what Zephyr does is it increases all of your movement speed, from your sprint, from your walk, to your sneaking speed. All speeds are increased. In fact, I would go as far to say that if you're doing a Flesh and Steel playthrough, this is a necessary Bonecharm. Like, I cannot praise how great this Bonecharm actually is. It's almost like picking up a rank of rapid sprint and the agility stat line. It's so good. Like, it's just a really, really nice Bonecharm to have, and it makes the movement just so much more fluid and responsive. I just love me some Zephyr. But the negative effect is that you will take more damage as a result of this, but I don't think it's enough damage to make a difference. Like, I don't think it's the difference between life or death in most instances, especially because you can go into your weapon wheel and just spam health potions. So, I mean, there's that. So, I think Zephyr is one of the greatest runes or Bonecharms in the game, but keep in mind the negative effect, and you can decide as a player whether or not you want to use it. Now, our 8th Bonecharm is going to be a black Bonecharm, which is called Fleet Fighter. Basically, movement speed is not slowed while your weapons are out. I just like this as, you know, just as a convenience thing. I like keeping my weapons out when I sneak. I don't use Swift Stalker for that reason. So I like to keep my weapons out when I sneak so that if someone does peek me behind a corner, I can execute them quickly without being compromised by the rest of the enemies in the room. So I definitely like Fleet Fighter. I don't like any delay between a spotted target and my crossbow. And finally, we're going to grab Swift Shadow. Sneak speed is increased. This is an amazing Bonecharm simply because once you enter sneak, you're faster than your default walking speed. I think that is pretty damn amusing. And for a stealth build, it's like absolutely necessary. Like, if you don't get this Bonecharm, I actually kind of feel bad for you, because there's a lot of shitty Bonecharms in the game, and you really should get Swift Shadow, even if you have to farm it. Like, it's that good for stealth, and you should definitely learn it before you start a New Game Plus playthrough, or make sure you use it if you do have a New Game Plus thing already going on. Anyways, that's all I have for my recommendations. For the final slot, you can pick whatever you want. Anything from Bloodfly Alchemy to, if you want more Bloodflies in your build, if that is. Or you can get something cool like Falling Star just to get even more mana back from different sources. If you're a mana hog, it's whatever you want, baby. It's whatever you want. There's a lot of interesting Bonecharms. You can pick your own. Alright, let us move on to the next ability in our build. Gosh, that went on a long time. Reflexes. You're going to spend 7 runes in here, and you're going to grab all ranks except for Focus Slide. Literally, that's my preference. I don't like Focus Slide. You can get it if you want. I think it's kind of just pointless, because I like to use the crossbow from a concealed position, not as like an open combat spam tool. That's just my preference. And you're also going to get the ability to deflect bullets, which is very essential for open combat. If you are compromised outside of Shadow Walk form and someone tries to shoot you, you're going to want to be able to block any incoming projectiles. It's just a nice thing to have. Also, deflecting them back at the enemy is a very easy way to combo into an instant kill. And you're also going to get an ability called Snap Reactions, which is going to be great for this build as an ambush tactic, because if you're trying to do a stealth kill and someone spots you, this gives you a little window of, oh shit, and you can instantly execute them with your crossbow, especially because it's going to allow you to, in that time frame, zoom in on the faceplate. You know, like, let's just say a hypothetical scenario. Someone spots you around a corner, they're wearing a helmet. What Snap Reaction can allow you to do is you can zoom in with your crossbow and get an instant headshot before they call out for help. So that's why I like Snap Reactions when it comes to the Reflexes tree, and that's why I recommend investing into it. It's another utility that really adds a dynamic feel to the Shadow Assault build. Next up, we're going to be getting all ranks of Agility. This is going to cost you 5 runes, and I love these abilities just because of the convenience factor. I like being able to move fast at any given time when I'm transporting my character, and I also like to combo the double jump with my far reach so that I can get to vertical points easier. Just really, really nice to have. And Catfall prevents you from dying if you mess up a far reach, because far reach is a very sketchy skill, guys. It really, really is. You could fling yourself off buildings easily. I honestly recommend practicing with far reach before you start an Emily playthrough. Like, just do a quick save, spam far reach a bunch of places, see what you can do with it, practice with the momentum of the ability itself, because it's a funky one compared to Blink. Blink is much more controlled. And finally, bringing up the aforementioned Far Reach. You're going to be spending 8 runes on this. You're going to grab all ranks. This is going to give you an easier transportation, as when you fall off of, you know, either a ledge or you double jump, you can press L2 and it'll slow down time, allowing you to easily pick your point to Far Reach too. It's really just a convenience. And then you're also going to get the ability to pull objects, which is useless. And then you're going to get the ability to pull humans as well. This is going to be another way we're going to kill people with this build. And overall, it just fits into the theme. Because Emily's Far Reach is actually kind of a shadow hand that reaches out and grabs things. And I don't know why. The inner nerd in me was like, I have to put this in my build, because if I don't, it's just silly. Like, I need to have as much shadow hands killing people as possible. So yeah, that's why I put Far Reach in there. For the convenience factor and for the shadow hands thing factor. Alright guys, that's all I really have to discuss as far as abilities. I'm going to move on into your upgrades and your consumables and all that fun shit. So for our base upgrades, we're going to be wanting to get the crossbow upgrades. The crossbow is going to be your essential tool for picking out enemies at long range. It synergizes very, very well with Shadow Kill, and with that being said, you're definitely going to be using a lot of steel bolts throughout the game as well. It's a very, very effective tool, to the point where you could probably just use the crossbow and beat the entire game. Like, that's how good the crossbow is. Next up, we're going to get the hardened bolt upgrades for the crossbow. It's allowing your crossbow to do better damage, and I think it reduces the rate at which they break, but I have no confirmation on this. But yeah, get hardened bolt upgrades, because why not? It's just better stuff. Also, make sure you get the incendiary bolt upgrade. I really like incendiary bolts, as I mentioned in the rune segment, because it's kind of like a stealth grenade. It doesn't give away your position in any way. And using your crossbow already and upgrading it to its fullest potential, there's no reason to not use the incendiary bolts. I really like them. I do use them from time to time in my clips because I'm just really fond of them. I never use them in my other builds, and I feel like that's kind of a shame, especially when it comes to stealth killing. I feel like this is like the end-all be-all for stealth kill builds, in my honest opinion. I love this build. And then finally, we're going to get these Spring Razor upgrades, because let's be honest, guys, Spring Razors, when it comes to any lethal build ever, Spring Razors just wreck face. They're ridiculously powerful. They're just obnoxious. If you ever get compromised by an entire building of dudes, like let's say, like hypothetically, every enemy in the game like freaking sees you and you're in a tiny room. You could just put down a Spring Razor and the apocalypse would ensue. Like, that's how powerful Spring Razors are. They're ridiculous. And there's an upgrade you can get for them that makes them trigger twice, making it the most ridiculous trap utility in the game. It's absolutely obnoxious. Let's talk about consumables briefly. You're going to be picking up crossbow bolts, Addermire Solution, Spring Razors, and Incendiary Bolts after you get the aforementioned upgrades, of course. Don't be afraid to spend money in this game, guys. If you haven't watched my builds before, do not be afraid to spend money. It's never an issue to buy resources. It really, really isn't. You get an abundance of wealth in this game, and you get a very, very favorable amount of resources. I never found it to be an issue, and I play on very hard, just if you're not aware. Just keep that in mind. And finally, we're going to move on to Masterwork upgrades. You're going to pick up the long distance lever for your crossbow. I think that for precision aiming and for long distance engagements, long distance lever is best. Especially if you're doing a stealth build. I don't like the double penetration ability, let's just call it that, because that's what it is. Simply because it doesn't see, it's very situational. Whereas the long distance lever can be used in every situation in the game. It's just that useful. For our sword, we're going to get the Monkey Wrench upgrade. For any stealth build, I recommend getting Monkey Wrench over Occult Kiss, simply because when you're executing people, you're going to primarily be doing so from a concealed position, and in this case, you're going to be using Shadow Walk to primarily kill witches as well. It's just really effective that way. Shadow Walk is going to be a much easier tool to kill enemies at any circumstance over your sword. And with the Bloodfly synergy, it's going to be very, very effective. At least against humans. I don't think witches are affected by it, which is kind of scary. But hey, you have a crossbow as well. Get the Howling Bolts if witches become too annoying for you if you keep getting seen by them. And then finally for our outfit, we're going to be getting Moth Dust Wrappings. For any stealth build, Moth Dust Wrappings is an essential. Unless you want to go complete open combat with this build, I recommend Moth Dust Wrappings over Collector's Carapace, but you can do what you want in that regard. I can't completely say that, oh, Collector's Carapace is not going to help you throughout this playthrough, because it's going to depend on how you want to play. So I recommend Moth Dust Wrappings because I like to stick to a closer to a stealth build than a completely all-out offensive. Combat is like my second option for this build. That's how I like to play it. But you play how you want, guys. Anyways, this is Violent Games. I think that's all I really have for you. I'm going to piss you off. But first I wanted to say, if you are into the Dishonored 2 builds, guides, and other things, I'm going to be doing more of them. I got 2 non-lethal open combat builds, both for Emily and Corvo. I looked at their kits, and I found that it's optimal for both of them, actually. So I'm excited for that. So stay tuned for that. Subscribe if you enjoy this series. It's what I'm focusing on right now, so you're going to be getting your D2 stuff, guys. You're going to be getting the D. Getting the D. Peace out. Dozen overseers have died trying to